Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Messaging Matters show. That little splash countdown went off pretty well. I got the one in there I wanted. Last few times I've gotten a 60-second one in. That's just kind of awkward when you hit live and then you wait 60 seconds. You're like, oh, where are my thumbs? Anyway, so I was much happier to have the 30-second one. Anyway, we are live and welcome to the Messaging Matters show. I'm your host, Todd Jones. This episode today is brought to you by Taco Tuesday, because it is Taco Tuesday. And I had tacos for supper, so hopefully you did as well. And also professional wrestling and Arkansas Razorback football. I thought it'd be fun to say. Yeah. Tune in next time. You'll never know what I'll say. It's brought to you by. I'm thinking about saying something like that every time. So one day we may actually have advertisers. But right now, it's brought to you by Taco Tuesday, professional wrestling, and Arkansas Razorback football. So anyway, I think we have one person who says he wants to heckle in the chat room. So if you are in the chat room, feel free to say hi or bug Rob Cairns from Studying Digital Marketing. But today I have with me a guy who's in one of probably my closest inner circle online, and that would be Ryan Waterbury from One Dog Solutions in Minnesota. Hello, Ryan. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am the owner and operator of One Dog Solutions, a very small marketing agency that specializes in web design development and getting your messaging off from that standpoint. And we recently have shifted focus back to making your website the cornerstone of your messaging for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a few minutes. I think largely your experience and what you share with me is probably the main reason for this particular show, aside from the fact that I had to get my friend on there. So now One Dog Solution is kind of inspired by a special pup named Bud. Can you tell us about Bud?
Yeah, actually, he's kind of he's on my About page, although I really haven't fleshed that out and explained why. He's there. He's a rescue. He's an American Brittany. I do a lot of work with American Brittany Rescue. But he's my hunting pal and just my best friend in general. But the American Brittany is what we call a versatile hunting dog, that if you're going to have one dog to hunt everything, they're the type of dog that you want. So you don't have to look anywhere else. And that was kind of the inspiration for my agency name. And when I kind of kicked off my agency, as I'm gonna be your point of contact to help you communicate for your entire business, whether you need print, digital marketing, a new website, whatever you need, we would handle it for you. And that mission hasn't changed, although we've shifted a little bit of focus. And part of that focus is now there's not just one dog in the house. We have we have two dogs, and I've inherited a dog from a family member who's now in senior care. My father-in-law's dog. He's a German Shorthair Shooter. He is also a versatile hunting dog. But that's been a little bit of a handful and a change for the agency. Doesn't necessarily go with the name, but they do the same thing together, and they're happy. They're mostly partners.
That's what I was thinking about today. Is like, I wonder if he'll change his name to Two Dog Solutions. No. But yeah,
that principle remains the same. And my first dog was a short hair, and I slowly and surely, after I take care of customer requests and their needs, rolling out some new branding, and the paw print, my new logo, is actually inspired from my first dog, who was a short hair. So,
yep. And those of us who are close friends with Ryan, we get the adventures of Bud and Shooter stories quite regularly, and he puts them in his email sometimes too.
My last email was kind of inspired by the two of them, and Bud just turned 10 this year. Shooter just turned 6. When Shooter first came to live with us, it was a harsh change for both of them. Shooter's owner was quite old. Actually celebrated his 81st birthday. So he's in a much more active household, so he's happier. But on the other hand, he's older and it takes him a little more time to adjust. And my last email that I had talked about to my audience was that the one thing that we can count on is change, and that there's always things changing. And we talk about the digital landscape with all the different methods of communication, the different platforms. Something is changed every single day.
Yeah, it's a great segue. That's a great segue to the topic. But I was also thinking about the Bob Dylan song about change, and you know, everything. If there's nothing, everything changes. It always changes. So I can't actually recall the words of the song right at the moment, but that always comes to my mind whenever I think about change. That Bob Dylan song. So yes, you had to make some changes, and that's actually what we're going to talk about. If anybody's curious about the title of being the death of cookie marketing, actually, when Ryan floated cookie marketing out to me the other day, I was like, what is cookie marketing? Does that have to do with cookie from the Cookie Monster, or cookies from McDonald's, or what does it have to do with? And of course, I mean, I kind of thought of cookies like on our website, because obviously people who have been building websites for years know about cookies, and so I kind of went into this a little, like I Googled, right? Because that's what you do. You Google, and I probably came up with immediately like 5 articles, maybe 6, I don't know, about the death of cookies in marketing. And what they were really referring to was third-party cookies, which is what we deal with. And so Ryan, put on your expertise hat and talk about third-party cookies, what that means, and how things are changing.
So I think it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I was doing a lot of digital marketing, both with social media platforms, mostly Facebook at that time, and also Google. It was really a match made in heaven. And this is 2016, maybe a little earlier. What we would do is register your business with Google Ads, in this case, and Facebook, and we would get a tracking code, a little snippet of JavaScript that we would load up in the header of your website. And what we would do is, based on the actions of people on your website, we would start to learn behavior. And guess what? It wasn't anonymous. Even if it said it was, we still knew who was visiting when and where, way back when. And there was a lot of information that was gathered about people. That was a little concerning. People said, hey, it's the creepy factor. I looked at this one of the ones that I hear the most creep factor is when you look at jewelry. And, guys would be out there logged in all their stuff. They'd go and look at a ring. And then all of a sudden their girlfriend's like, why am I seeing ads for engagement rings? And specific ads that you'd have them look over their shoulder, and he's like, holy shoot, I looked at that exact one at that exact store. How do they know? Well, when you're logged into your Facebook account, your Google account, that's still kind of true today. But you didn't necessarily have to be logged in. They would track your movements and wait and hold that cookie until you logged in and said, oh, you visited this client's website, you looked at this product. Now we're going to show you that over and over. That's kind of goes in line with the rules of sales. How many touches? 7. Well, we're going to hit you as many times as we can with the most relevant things that you've been searching for. People started to take notice as, the algorithms got more intelligent, and they said, hey, I feel like my privacy is being invaded. And, we had political scandals with Cambridge Analytica, and other lawsuits in the EU, which led to GDPR, which actually led to the cookie consent bar, where there are some things, and we talk about the death of third-party cookies, but there are certainly some first-party cookies that are generated by the website, so you have a better experience. You don't want to see a pop-up every time you visit. Things like that are innocuous. We're not collecting a lot of data, but that was really the first step when we started to see the tracking being blocked and advertising becoming less effective based on tracking. One of my magic money, I'll give you a little secret sauce because it's not as relevant as it was. We would run simple search text ads for very specific things for service businesses. When they would land on that service page after a higher paying Google ad, we would hit them with a lot more social media ads, remarket, because we knew they visited that page and that was probably fresh in their mind. And it was cheaper to advertise on social media platforms at that time. So, that little snippet of code gave us a lot of info about customers' purchasing behavior, or, just based on their browsing behavior. A lot of that's gone. We look at GDPR, which said, hey, we're going to, put the consent bar. Well,
can you define GDPR and explain what that is? That comes out of the European Union, but somebody who's listening to the States may not know what the GDPR is.
Yeah, it's the General Data Privacy Regulation, where you have to disclose what information specifically that you're collecting about an individual and allow them to opt out. And This is specific for EU individuals, although we're seeing it more so in the US just as a blanket policy, because websites can be accessed from anywhere. So we're seeing people being more privacy conscious here, and that kind of leads into not necessarily the cookie bar where you want to use the site, you just click OK, and you're in, and you accept everything. Responsible ones like Main WP, when you hit OK, they only collect the essential. They don't have the marketing ones on. They're very privacy focused. They're very transparent about letting you know that. Most people still want to collect data because it helps you market better and understand customers better.
Yeah, what I try to explain to any people is even like even, and this goes back to the SSL certificate as well, right? So a contact form is collecting data, right? It's collecting data, and it's also sending information over the internet. So there's two things. You got a contact form on your website. You need to have an SSL certificate, and two, you need to have some kind of consent form.
Sure, and that comes in with a privacy policy that says, here we're collecting your information. The different piece about a contact form, you're knowingly submitting information, personal information about yourself.
True, yeah.
With pixel tracking, a lot of people were unknowingly submitting data about their browsing habits. Correct. And companies were collecting that information and using it to retarget them with advertisements. Not necessarily a bad thing, but when you start looking at political organizations invading your privacy, then people start taking notice. And
I tend to get more upset by texts from politicians than I do from companies, and they can just do it. I mean,
and there's some things that are changing now with Google. I did a lot of advertising for political organizations, for both major parties, a lot of third parties, and there were a lot of rules after the 2018 midterms that were put down to make sure that you verified who you were and you were only advertising a specific way. 2020, those got a little tighter, but now we're starting to see some things being rolled back based on political pressure. Google is actually being pressured to allow direct inbox delivery and bypassing spam there, in the US at least. So there are some things that are softening, but when we talk about cookie marketing, iOS 14 was one of the first big ones. And I'm on a Mac, so I benefited from that with Safari. And I know you use Brave, which blocks tracking, and that keeps a lot of your data a little bit more private, where
Right.
those cookie bars and the privacy policies will tell you if the website responds to do not track. Well, now browsers like Safari, Brave, and to a point, the DuckDuckGo browser, will block some of the tracking and outright and not share that with organizations. So you have a little more protection there. And so if you all of a sudden, after 2020, 21, started seeing in your Facebook feed ads that were completely irrelevant to you, part of that had to do with people not being aware of new targeting methods and the tracking blocking, that you weren't being as effective with showing ads to customers based on the browsing activity.
This is going to affect, this is something I learned today looking through the articles. This is going to affect the publishing industry as well. And that's a whole nother conversation I was having in Slack group with another gentleman who's in the publishing industry within WordPress. So we were talking about that because I think you're going to see more contextual ads is the word that they use. So I think there's going to be coming back to that. But for the average business owner, let's talk about how that affects them. Maybe some of these things we've done in the past won't be as effective. And what does that mean for the future?
So when we talk about, social media advertising and the amount of data that Meta, it used to be just Facebook Corporation, but when we talk about Meta, that's Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, all their WhatsApp and all the properties that they own. When there were a lot of plugins out there, Google Tag Manager, the easy way is just to copy a code snippet and paste it in your website. And you were tracking. And, that was sending data back to the mothership. So it was pretty easy to have a low ad cost and show your ads to people who were already interested in your product or your business. So those little small mom and pop shops that didn't have a big advertising budget, let's say somebody found them, via Google Map search for plumbing. I'm going to pick on service-based industries, and they're doing a little shopping. Maybe they're saying, "Oh, I've got a leaky faucet. I need some help with it." Well, the plumber that actually has a pixel on his site could go ahead when they log into a social media platform, they'd start seeing ads if they had set it up appropriately to show it back to those customers. Right. And that's much more effective. Now, without that intelligent tracking, that data, you're spending a lot more. I know some of the articles that are out there. HubSpot had one that said 5 to 25% more for advertising costs over 21 into 22 and 23. That's pretty lean. I think you're looking at least 50 to 100% more to be just as effective with some of the older strategies with remarketing.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I would say about this. One, it costs you more to do the social media marketing because of the changes. And two, anybody who uses Facebook regularly, especially for business purposes, and they use their business page to do it, realizes Facebook does not have very much organic reach anymore.
No.
10, 12 years ago, people were going gangbusters. Now, I hardly ever post on my Facebook pages anymore because it's like a noise in the woods and nobody's around. They can't hear it.
Exactly. I tried for a little bit with organic reach, but I was doing organic social media in 2012, 2013, 2014. It started to shift, and it was between 2014 and 2015 when they said, we want to keep people's news feeds more for their friends and family. Well, that was a lie. They wanted you to spend money on advertising. Yeah. And, so people's news feeds got a little more relevant because they started seeing ads for places they visited around that time because we were
Right.
tracking them. So it was a win-win for everybody. Businesses were making more money. Facebook made a ton more money. They gathered a lot more data. Um, but yeah, the organic reach, I don't remember the last time I saw anything relevant to what I cared about on my newsfeed from a business that I follow.
Right, right. I mean, and the people I know who are doing well organically are doing it on their personal profile. I mean, it's just the way it is. And, Facebook would probably say, now, you're not supposed to do it on your personal profile, but that's what they're doing. And can you blame them? And that's where they're getting reached. Now, that kind of puts a kink in what we did. I still think there's a place for social media marketing and so forth. I'm not dismissing that, but I think it changes everything, like about how you do your business.
Well,
So,
yes and no. And I'll tell you, you can still collect that data and you can still build those audiences. But if you have to do it at scale in order to collect intelligent data. So what's happening now is, first party cookies aren't being blocked. You can self-host and gather information yourself. So e-commerce stores are one of the good examples that really can still be relevant and
but
offer some.
they'll have a hard time following people around the internet now.
They do.
I mean, all businesses will have a hard time doing that because the retargeting was, yes, you had people on your site getting information from them, but then when they go to, and there's something else that people aren't talking a lot about. I know for sure that, and I don't have any numbers, but that people are leaving Facebook.
Mhm.
They're walking away. Some are walking away altogether. Some are walking away
Right.
for an extended period of time. So I mean, and even Instagram's losing its luster.
So this will be in my next newsletter. I'm taking a really hard look. I got my first taste of the new Instagram flavor, and it's TikTok rewrapped. And Google is very aware of this. Facebook's aware of the impact there. More people are gravitating toward that video focused marketing, but guess what? It doesn't convert to sales like the other avenues on those platforms do. So you have to spend more money, more production money and time to produce something. Even these small little apps, like Canva or some of the video apps that help you, you still have to take time away from your business to learn how to use them, put together something nice, do it 3, 4, 5, 6 times, not different number of takes to produce content. I mean, lately in the reels, I've seen a lot of small business owners, like contractors, complaining about, I guess I'm doing content today again, and it's kind of a joke because they know that they need to be active on these platforms to attract business, but it takes time away from them doing their actual business. So it's not necessarily a loss leader, it's just a loss.
Yeah, and the problem with, and I don't have any concept. I mean, other than what I see on TV about TikTok. I mean, I may go look at a video someone shares. You don't have to log in to look at a video sometimes, but I don't have a TikTok account, and I do have Instagram. I have 2 Instagram accounts, so I go look at there's really no way, and the other social media platforms don't want you to do this at all. There's really no way on Instagram and TikTok to bring them back to what you own to actually convert it into sales. Now you can use the messaging. I will say that the smart people will say, message me or drop a DM or whatever. Then you can carry that where you want. So it really is difficult, especially for an average business owner to manage. But this goes back to what you and I and Rob and so many other people say. You cannot build or rent a platform. You have to have your own, which is a website and an email list.
That kind of brings it around to how I've shifted. And, if it wasn't cheap search text ads that we were running, it was good content and investing in spending time on SEO where people are searching for something specific, whether it's a how-to video on YouTube or, even further, embedding that in your blog post that talks about how to do something and gives relevant information. That was the other avenue, building good content that, again, we would pixel and retarget. So that avenue's gone. But I want people to sign up for my email list. Lead magnets are, I have not seen a good lead magnet work for me in probably a year and a half at least. But what I have seen is on the pages that I split test where I've had an email sign up and then I've had the lead magnet opt-in, they still get signed up if they get the lead magnet. People don't want it. They'll sign up for the email list though. And, I share a little bit of a story. Some of our colleagues may not necessarily like that long form, but I also share some relevant news and tips and tricks and some things that I've done in my business that have helped me. And I will tell you that every time I send an email out, I get a call, I get an email, I get somebody engaging and either thanking me for the content, asking how they can get more information. The past handful, every single time somebody's reached out and said, I need help with this. When can I get your web design schedule? My email list has generated more business for me in the last 6 months than my lead magnets and social media marketing has in the last year.
Amazing.
So, we always talk about there's money in the list, but it takes time to grow that list. And,
it does.
And how do you get the list? I see Rob in the comments talking, he's taken years to build this list.
Yeah.
And, but if you provide good quality information and you do it consistently, that was the change that I made almost a year ago that I committed to at first doing monthly. And then I said, you know what? I've got more information than I can put in a monthly newsletter. It's too long.
Yeah.
Our friend Devinder said, oh, your email's going to be too long. So I said,
for
I'm
him,
going to do it. Yeah, for him. I said, I'm going to do this every other week. And I've been consistent every other week. And I collect my information, through the 2 weeks and sort through. And I kind of think about what trends are changing, what I want to talk about, and what I think my customers care about.
Yeah.
And I put together a newsletter on the latest news in digital, what's changing. And, this is directly relevant for them on how they get their messaging out. So I make sure it's relevant. I have a little spin on how it's affecting my business and what I'm doing. And, just a few words of wisdom. And I do it every other week. I don't give them any more or any less. And it's been good.
Yeah, you do a good job of trends. That's what I like about your emails. You'll talk about something. Maybe you share it in Slack, but then you turn around and put it in email. I'm like, oh, I didn't look closely. But that goes back to if you're listening to this and you wonder what the heck I'm talking about, my REO framework, which there's a video in the YouTube channel, so you don't have to go very far. The first REO stands for relevant, engaging, and original. But you just said it, relevant. You made your content on your website and your email relevant. And that makes a huge difference. And I know Rob does the same thing with his email. It's very, and so and consistency is big too. I think our friend Jason Resnick would say people stop before it really kicks in, and don't stop, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my last blog post, and I had a follow-up one where it was, that's actually not the right way, because it's not. But, I talked about finding a medium that you can consistently communicate on, whether it's email, a newsletter, a podcast, a video cast, social media. And it's still relevant. You still have your core audience that's going to see that, and they will share it. And honestly, that's still important. I don't want to talk down, social media. When I talk about social media marketing, I really look at that differently from the organic side. I look at that more as paid advertising, and that's I'll be honest, I think it's less effective for smaller businesses than it used to be. But don't take that to say that you shouldn't post things on social media when you're doing something good. People want to see you succeed.
So there's a couple things I want to add to this, and then I want to kind of wrap it up. First, I follow Ross Simmons on Twitter. He's like, I guess, the CEO of Foundation Inc., which is a content marketing company. And he does a great job. And I first heard the idea from our friend Kim Dole about repurposing content. Ross calls it remixing, which I absolutely love because I mean, I like the idea. I guess it sounds like a mix, right? A mixtape. We used to make mixtapes as a kid, but it's taking the content you've already created and remixing it multiple ways for different platforms. So you're creating a new format for the same content, right? And but then, and I always thought, I still think, you got to get people to the website. But then today, and I'll put this Twitter thread in the show notes. Another lady I follow who works for SparkToro with Rand Fishkin had this incredible thread today about how you can provide relevant content on the platform. And she kind of blew away my idea about, you got to get people. You do got to get people to your site. But she pointed out it can be just like the old days when we basically did stuff for a brand lift to get, brand awareness, basically. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So a very good thread. I need to put that in the the show notes. But I think her name is Amanda Namteed or something like that. She's an incredibly smart woman.
You mentioned Ross. I love following him, and he is really great when he talks about repurposing content and when he does brand teardowns and what they're doing well. I think he recently did one for Spotify on what they're doing, and it was fantastic. From top to bottom, he talked about their organic traffic, their advertising traffic and channel, and went top to bottom and talked about all the good things and about the things that they could do better. In my last blog post I had written, talked about being consistent and finding a medium that you can do it in. I always come back to writing content and having it published on your site, because that I can't talk enough about SEO and having an anchor to your site with good quality content, and to be able to repurpose that, whether it's in a newsletter, social media, or a Google search. That's going to help you more than anything else. Unfortunately, not every business is a great fit for blogging. I mean, e-commerce stores, I have some, niche audiences that, hey, they want to read about, what they're doing. I think like hiking and camping, when you talk about tips, and then you pair it up with, products in your store. But I don't know that every store that I've seen really does well with that.
I think it depends on the type of content you do, and that's the issue with you have Kaylee Moore is an e-commerce copywriter and brilliant marketer, and she writes these detailed long form email marketing or e-commerce marketing posts which go on industry sites. Those are not fit for your average run the mill e-commerce lifestyle site. Right. What you can do, say you got a pet store, tell the story of Bud and Shooter. There's no authority in that per se, but it's engaging, it's relevant, it's original, and it helps with the brand awareness. It's something that gets people to the site. I think e-commerce can do content marketing in a different manner than maybe what your run-of-the-mill SaaS, software as a service company would do.
Sure, I think the point is that as business owners, we need to find other avenues besides relying on mining data about individuals. And I think how I've been most effective is finding more personal connections through my emails, my stories, and my industry trends. And that's been effective for me. It took me a while to find that that's what customers were interested in, and what jogged them to come out and talk to me about helping them do the same things. So it's not going to be the same thing for every industry, and that's kind of what I was getting to with an e-commerce site. It may not have the same tactics that a mom and pop pet shop will, but what you want to try and do is stay on brand, find your message, and build around that. It might be a newsletter, it might be social media posts, it might be a blog. But for every business, it's going to be a little different. But you need to find that avenue that's organic and
find that message.
Exactly.
What a great way to sum up a Messaging Matters show, right? Your core messaging, whatever that is, and find it. But I think it's easier to do those things when you do have that core messaging about who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Right. And exactly. And I think, not to say that you shouldn't spend money on paid advertisements. It definitely is still effective. You're going to spend more for it. But I think finding that core message for your business first and finding an effective method and the message that resonates with your customers before you start spending money on advertising, digital advertising in particular, is going to be more important.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the thing people get wrong, and some business owners jump into all this fancy stuff, and it don't work. We don't know why it don't work. Well, start with the foundation. What is that message? Who are you? Who do you help? How do you do it? What is it you do? How are you different? Those things, those core tenets of your message, and then you can use that as a foundation to share your message across platforms. And then I think using content, as you mentioned, content marketing. But it's not easy. Obviously, not everybody does it. And, used to be, hey, do the blogging all the time, right? We did that. And many of us do that. And, Rob went to doing podcasts almost exclusively, and it's worked fine for him. I think most businesses should probably try to find some kind of a balance on those things. But podcast is not easy for everybody to execute. So, I turned to veterans like Rob Cairns and Joe Casabana for help with podcasting. So,
at the outset, if you have a website, 10 out of 10, it's going to have a blogging capability in there somewhere. And that's my best advice is start writing a blog. You're probably not going to be good at it when you start out. I wasn't. My early articles were terrible. And some of my new ones still aren't great, but I keep writing them and they get better. They get more views. I have more relevant pieces that I find. I still have two articles that rank on page 1 for their particular search terms. They need a little polishing for today's date, but honestly, you're not gonna bang out a winner every time. And the point is, it's practice.
It takes a while to and there are resources out there to help us, right? From software like Hemingway app and Grammarly and Pro Writing Aid to resources like I mentioned Kaylee Moore. She's got a ton of great resources for people writing. Their books, their courses to learn to write better. There's, if you just read, 12 years ago, I started reading the Copyblogger blog, and I think that made me a better writer just reading it. So
absolutely,
So. Anyway, man, I appreciate you coming on and geeking out about this. I think it's really interesting how we ended up back at writing or in creating content, and because that that matters.
Yeah, right. And you touched on it. It really started out with blogging being one of the first monetization points and the first places where ads were shown and tracked and relevant.
Yeah,
I think we've come back full circle where we need to do good, proper content again in order to attract our ideal customers.
It's even more now than it was, in 2010, because
Oh,
you
yeah.
have so many more blogs out there now than you did back then. So it does need to be good. And you can check out the video on REO framework to see what, at least one idea of what, excuse me, good content is. And so where can people find you online without doing the creepy pixel retargeting?
Every social media platform out there, every major one, at One Dog Solutions. You can visit my website, onedog.solutions, or email me at ryan.waterbury@onedog.solutions.
Yeah, and now if you go to your website and you go to social media, you'll get to see pictures of Bud as well, and Shooter. So, and if you sign up for his email list, you may get a story about Bud and Shooter adventures, but you also get really relevant content about the industry we're in.
Yeah, right in my footer, I have a sign up link for my newsletter. And right on the landing page, I tell you exactly what I'm going to write about. It's security, SEO news, and digital industry trends.
And you might even give them a lead magnet. I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your experience, your story, if you will, about how things changed for you.
Yeah.
And we will continue to see more, look forward to more adventures of Bud and Shooter.
Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, man. Have a good night.
You too.